The world saw Keanu Reeves as the calm man who smiled in silence, the movie star who never chased the spotlight. But behind the quiet eyes was a story few knew, a story that had been locked away for years, a story that began long before the fame, before the red carpets, before the flashes of cameras, and a story that had a connection with Sandra Bullock, one that neither of them had spoken about in public, till now. It started on a cold winter night in Los Angeles. The city was bright, but Keanu felt the weight of loneliness pressing on his chest. He had just finished filming a movie, and while everyone celebrated, he slipped away from the noise. In his heart, he carried memories of loss, heartbreak, and moments that shaped him into the man the world admired from afar. He walked along a quiet street, his hands deep in his coat pockets, wondering if the emptiness he felt would ever leave. That was when his phone rang. The name on the screen made him stop. Sandra Bullock. It had been months since they last spoke. She rarely called without a reason, and her voice, when he answered, carried a mix of warmth and hesitation. "Keanu, I need to see you. It's about something from years ago." Her tone told him this wasn't about work or a casual catch-up. This was serious. 2 hours later, they sat across from each other in a small, hidden cafe, the kind of place where nobody asked questions. Sandra looked tired, her eyes heavy, but there was also a kind of nervous energy about her. She didn't speak right away, and Keanu didn't rush her. He had learned long ago that sometimes silence gave people the space they needed to gather their courage. Finally, she spoke. "Do you remember the night in Vancouver during the filming of our first movie together?" Keanu nodded slowly. He remembered every detail. The laughter between takes, the cold air that made their breath visible, the strange moment when they both ended up on a quiet balcony, away from the crowd, watching the city lights. It had been a moment of calm in a world of chaos. But then Sandra's voice broke through his memory. "There's something I never told you about that night, something I've kept hidden for over 20 years. She reached into her bag and pulled out an old folded piece of paper. Her fingers trembled slightly. As she slid it across the table to him, Keanu stared at the paper, but he didn't unfold it right away. Instead, he looked into her eyes, searching for some clue about what this was. But her expression gave nothing away except the truth that whatever was inside that paper mattered deeply to her. "Before you read it," she said softly, "you need to know? This could change the way you see me, could even change the way you remember us." For a long moment, the only sound in the cafe was the soft hum of distant music. Keanu finally opened the paper. His eyes scanned the words, and his face, always so controlled, changed in small, subtle ways. His jaw tightened, his brows drew together, and then, as he reached the last line, his hands fell still. He looked back up at her, his voice low. "Sandra, why didn't you tell me this before?" Her answer was simple, yet heavy with emotion. "'Cause I was afraid you'd walk away, afraid you'd see me differently, afraid it would ruin something that was pure." He leaned back in his chair, the weight of what he had just read pressing against his chest. He didn't speak right away, because the truth was, he didn't know what to say. He felt a mix of surprise, sadness, and something else, something like understanding. But deep inside, he also felt the first stirrings of a question that would change everything between them. What else had been hidden all these years? That night, when they finally left the cafe, the city felt colder than before. And yet, between the shadows and the streetlights, a strange, unspoken promise hung in the air. Keanu knew they were stepping into something deep, something that would test the limits of trust, friendship, and the quiet bond they had carried for decades. Asterisk, Keanu barely slept that night. The words from the paper stayed in his mind like a song he could not turn off. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Sandra's face in the cafe. The way her hands had trembled, the way her eyes had carried both fear and hope. It was strange because they had known each other for so long, yet in that moment he realized there was so much he didn't know. The next morning, the city woke up in its usual rush, but Keanu stayed in his apartment, staring out at the gray sky. The paper lay on the table, still unfolded. It felt almost dangerous, like it held a part of Sandra's soul. He picked it up again, reading the words slowly, trying to understand everything they meant. It wasn't just a confession. It was a piece of the past that had the power to change their present. By afternoon, he decided he needed answers. He called her, but she didn't pick up. Instead, a short message came through. "Meet me at Griffith Park at 6. We can talk there." No explanation, no smiley face, nothing extra, just those words. It was enough to tell him that whatever they were stepping into wasn't going to be simple. The sun was low when Keanu arrived. The park was quiet, the air cool with the scent of grass and dust. He spotted her near the old observatory, standing with her back to him, looking out over the city. She didn't turn around when he walked up. Instead, she spoke softly, almost as if she were talking to herself. "There's more, Keanu. The paper was just the beginning. I didn't tell you that what happened in Vancouver. It was connected to something that could have ruined both our careers back then." She paused, taking a deep breath. "And it wasn't just about me. It was about you too." He felt his chest tighten. "About me? How?" His voice was calm, but inside he could feel the tension building. Finally, she turned to face him. Her eyes were steady now, no longer trembling. "Someone saw us that night on the balcony. Someone took a photo, and they tried to use it against you?" Keanu's mind flashed back to that night. The balcony, the city lights, the quiet laughter they had shared. It had been innocent, but he knew how easily stories could be twisted. "Why didn't you tell me then?" he asked. "Because," she said, her voice shaking for the first time that evening, "I thought I could protect you by keeping it too. Myself, I thought if I stayed quiet the photo would disappear, and for a long time it did. But last week, it showed up again." Silence settled between them, heavy and sharp. Keanu felt a strange mix of emotions: gratitude that she had tried to protect him, frustration that she had hidden it, and a quiet fear about what this could mean now. "Do you have it?" she asked. She reached into her bag again, this time pulling out a small envelope. When he opened it, his breath caught. There it was, the balcony, the city lights, the two of them standing close, faces turned toward each other in a way that could be read as anything. To a stranger, it might look like love. To the press, it would have been a headline. "Someone sent this to me with a note," Sandra said quietly. "They said if I didn't agree to meet their demands, they would release it. They didn't say who they were, but I have a feeling it's someone we both know." Keanu kept staring at the photo, his mind turning over names, faces, possibilities. He felt the old instincts kicking in, the ones that told him when danger was close, even if it wasn't the kind that came with guns or fists. This was a different kind of danger. One that could damage reputations, friendships, and maybe even the trust between them. He looked up at her. "Then we find out who it is," he said, his voice steady. "Together." Her eyes softened, and for the first time that night she allowed herself to smile. "Together," she repeated. As they walked away from the observatory, the lights of the city stretched out below them, beautiful and distant. Neither of them spoke, but they both knew the path ahead wouldn't be easy. Somewhere out there, someone was waiting, someone who knew their secret and was ready to use it. The days that followed were tense. Keanu and Sandra spoke every morning, checking in, trying to piece together clues. They didn't tell anyone else, not even their closest friends. The fewer people who knew, the safer it would be. Still a quiet fear sat in the back of Keanu's mind. Someone had waited decades to bring this up. Why now? On the third day, Sandra called him with a tremor in her voice. "I think they're watching me," she whispered. "Yesterday there was a black car parked outside my house for hours. Today I saw the same one near the studio." Keanu felt a knot form in his stomach. He had learned in his life, both on and off screen, sometimes danger didn't come running toward you, it simply lingered. It's waiting. They decided to meet in person again, but this time in a place where they could blend into a crowd. They chose a busy outdoor market. People bustled around them, buying fruit, sipping coffee, talking about their own lives. To anyone watching, it would look like two old friends sharing a casual conversation. But beneath the surface, their words carried weight. "I've been thinking," Keanu said quietly, his eyes scanning the crowd without being obvious. If they know both of us, that means they were close enough to see us back then. Not just on set, but that specific night. That narrows it down. Sandra nodded, her face calm, but her hands clasped tightly in front of her. There's one more thing, she said. When they sent the envelope, they also included a small key. No note explaining it, just the key. She pulled it out of her pocket, letting it rest in her palm. It was old, brass, and worn, with a number scratched into one side. 208. Keanu took the key, turning it over in his fingers. Looks like a hotel key, he murmured. But from where? Before she could answer, he caught movement from the corner of his eye. A man in a dark jacket was standing by a fruit stall, pretending to look at apples, but glancing toward them more than once. Keanu didn't react outwardly, but his senses sharpened. Don't turn around, he whispered. Where? Not alone. They continued talking casually, acting as if nothing was wrong, but both could feel the tension building. After a few more minutes, Keanu suggested they split up. Walk to your car slowly, he told her. I'll follow at a distance. He moves after you, I'll know. Sandra nodded, forcing a small smile as she turned away. Keanu watched from a distance as she walked, her steps steady, her posture calm. The man hesitated, then began moving, too slowly, casually, as if he was just another shopper heading in the same direction. Keanu's pulse quickened. He moved to keep the man in sight, weaving between people, keeping his head low. When Sandra reached her car, she unlocked it and got in quickly. The man stopped at the corner, watching. Keanu stepped closer, his voice calm but firm. Can I help you with something? The man looked at him, startled. For a moment there was silence, just the noise of the market behind them. Then the man smiled faintly. Should tell your friend to be careful, he said. Old secrets have a way of coming back to life. Without another word, he walked away, disappearing into the crowd. Keanu stood there for a moment, his mind racing. Whoever this was, he wasn't just watching. He was warning them, more threatening them. It's the way it meant one thing. The game had begun. That night, Keanu sat in his apartment with the old brass key on the table in front of him. It felt heavier than it should, as if it carried not just metal, but history. Somewhere, room 208 was waiting, and he had a feeling that whatever they found there would not only answer their questions, it might also break something between them forever. Asterisk. 3 days passed before Keanu and Sandra decided to use the key. The wait wasn't because they lacked courage, but because they knew that once they stepped through the door of room 208, there would be no turning back. Whatever was inside would either clear the air or pull them into something much darker. They met in the late afternoon outside an old hotel on the edge of town. It wasn't the kind of place celebrities stayed in. The paint was faded, the sign flickered, and the lobby smelled faintly of dust and old carpet. Sandra pulled her hat low over her face, and Keanu kept his head down. The desk clerk barely looked up when they entered. Need a room? He asked. No, Keanu said quietly. We already have one. He slid the brass key across the counter, the number 208 catching the dim light. The clerk's eyes flicked to the key, and for just a moment, something like recognition passed over his face. But he didn't ask questions. Instead, he nodded toward the stairs. Second floor, end of the hall. The hallway was silent, except for the soft creak of the floorboards under their feet. Sandra's breathing was slow but tense. Think this could be a trap? She whispered. Keanu glanced at her. Maybe, but we need to see it through. When they reached the door, Keanu hesitated only for a second before sliding the key into the lock. It turned with a soft click, and the door swung open. The room was dark, the air heavy and still. Curtains were drawn, blocking the late afternoon light. There was no sign of anyone being there recently, but the space didn't feel abandoned. Felt prepared. On the small table by the window sat a single brown envelope. Larger than the one Sandra had received before, Keanu closed the door behind them. Sandra picked up the envelope, her fingers trembling just slightly. Inside were a series of photographs, more than a dozen spanning years. Not just the balcony photo, but moments neither of them even remembered being photographed. Dinners, film sets, quiet conversations in public places. These aren't just from Vancouver, Keanu murmured. Whoever took these, they've been following us for decades. At the bottom of the stack was a folded note. Sandra unfolded it slowly, reading aloud. "Oh, you both owe me. Meet at the pier Friday night, 9 p.m. Come alone. If you bring anyone else, everything goes to the press." Keanu took the note from her, reading it again in silence. There was no name, no signature, nothing to give away the sender only. The place and time. Sandra sat down on the edge of the bed, her face pale. "Keanu, whoever this is, they've been in our lives without us knowing. They've been close enough to see everything." Keanu stayed by the window, looking out at the parking lot below. His voice was steady, but there was a weight behind it. "We need to know what they want, but we go together, no matter what the note says." For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The room felt colder now, as if the photographs had pulled some unseen shadow into the space. When they finally left, Keanu kept the envelope under his arm. As they stepped into the fading light, he glanced at Sandra. "Friday night, the pier. We find out who's been watching us." Sandra nodded. But inside, a question burned. What if the person at the pier wasn't just someone from their past? What if it was someone they had once trusted completely? Friday night arrived with a heavy mist rolling in from the ocean. The pier was almost empty, just a few scattered figures moving in and out of the fog. The distant sound of waves crashing against the wooden pillars echoed through the damp air. Keanu and Sandra walked side by side, their footsteps slow and measured. Neither spoke, but both felt the same weight. This was the moment everything could change. The photographs, the balcony memory, the strange key. All of it had led here. They stopped near the far end of the pier under a dim, flickering light. The note had said "come alone," but they had ignored it. Whatever waited here, they would face it together. From the fog, a figure emerged, tall with a long coat pulled tight against the wind. The person walked slowly, each step deliberate. As the mist parted, Keanu's eyes narrowed. Sandra's breath caught. It was a man they both knew. A face from the early days, someone who had once been like family on set. Liam Carter, a former assistant director from their first movie together. Back then, he had been young, ambitious, always smiling. But now his face was harder, lined with years. His eyes sharp with something darker. "So," Liam said, stopping a few feet away, "you finally decided to show up." "What?" His voice carried a bitter edge. "What?" "I wondered how long it would take before you stopped pretending you'd forgotten me." Keanu took a step forward. "What is this, Liam? Why have you been following us?" Liam gave a short, humorless laugh. "Following you? No, Keanu, I've been watching. There's a difference. I was there that night on the balcony." "Right." The way you looked at each other, I knew it was the kind of thing that could change everything if the world found out." Sandra's voice was steady, but her eyes searched his face. "And you've kept these photos for decades. Why? What do you want?" Liam's jaw tightened. "What do I want? I want what's taken from me. Think your career's just soared? Because of talent? No. It's because people like me worked in the shadows to make sure you were untouchable. And while you got rich and famous, I was blacklisted. One mistake, and I was out. Meanwhile, the two of you kept shining." Keanu's voice was calm but firm. "We didn't know what happened to you. If we had, don't." Liam cut him off. "Don't act like you would have saved me. No one saves the little guy in this business. So now you're going to pay me for all those years. And if you don't, every photo goes public. I've got enough to make headlines for weeks." He pulled a small flash drive from his pocket, holding it up between two fingers. "This has everything. And you've got 1 week to decide how much your clean image is worth." Sandra stepped forward, her voice trembling now, with fear, but with anger. "Liam, this isn't about the photos, is it? It's about revenge. But destroying us won't fix what happened to you." Liam's eyes flashed. "Maybe not. But it will make you feel what I felt, powerless." Without another word, he turned and walked back into the fog, disappearing as silently as he had appeared. Keanu and Sandra stood in the mist, the sound of the waves filling the silence between them. Keanu finally spoke. "He's not just after money, he wants to hurt us. If he's held on to this for so long, I don't think he'll stop until he does." Sandra looked out into the darkness. "Then we don't wait a week. We end this now." Asterisk. The week Liam had given them never came. Keanu and Sandra weren't going to wait. Every day they let him keep. Those photos was another day he had control over their lives. On Sunday night, just before midnight, they tracked him down to a small apartment near the harbor. Sandra had found the address through an old contact in the industry who still owed her a favor. The building was old, the walls cracked, the lights in the hall buzzing faintly. Keanu knocked on the door, his knock firm but calm. No answer. He knocked again, and this time they heard footsteps inside, slow and heavy. When the door opened, Liam stood there, surprise flickering in his eyes before it turned into a smirk. "Couldn't wait a week, huh?" he said. Keanu stepped inside without asking, Sandra close behind. "We're not here to negotiate," Keanu said. "We're here to end this." Liam shut the door, leaning against it casually. "End this. The only way this ends is if you give me what I want." He walked to a small table and picked up the flash drive, holding it like a trophy. "Without this, you've got nothing to fear. So how much is your piece worth?" But Sandra didn't look at the flash drive. Her eyes moved to a cardboard box on the table, half open. Inside were stacks of photographs, not just of her and Keanu, but of other actors, producers, and crew. Decades of moments stolen without consent. "My God," she whispered. "It wasn't just us. You've been doing this to everyone." Liam's smirk faltered for a moment. "So what? No one cared about me. So I made sure they'd care now." Keanu walked to the table, picking up one of the photos. His voice was quiet, but it cut through the room. "You think this makes you powerful, Liam? But it just makes you trapped. You've spent your life holding on to other people's lives instead of fixing your own." Liam's jaw tightened. "It's easy for you to say. You had everything handed." "To you, no," Keanu said, his eyes steady. "I've lost more than you know. But I learned something you didn't. Holding on to bitterness is just another kind of prison." For a long moment, no one moved. The only sound was the hum of the hallway light through the thin door. Then Sandra stepped forward, her voice low, but strong. "We're not paying you, Liam. We are giving you a chance to walk away from this without the police getting involved. All the photos, all the drives, they go to us. Tonight, and you disappear from our lives." Liam's eyes flickered between them. His hand tightened around the flash drive, but then he looked at the box of photos. Something in his expression shifted, anger still there, but mixed with something else. Maybe exhaustion, maybe shame. Finally, he tossed the flash drive onto the table. "Take it. Take all of it. But don't pretend you're saving me. I was lost a long time ago." Gathered everything, photos, drives, negatives, packing them into 2 large bags. When they left the apartment, the night air felt different, lighter, but not completely free. Some wounds went deeper than a single night could heal. Later at Sandra's house, they sat at her kitchen table, the bags of evidence between them. Neither spoke for a while. Finally, Sandra broke the silence. "We should burn them, all of it." Keanu nodded. Some things don't belong in the world, so they did. In the quiet of her backyard, under the stars, they fed every photograph and drive into a small fire, watching the smoke rise until nothing remained but ash. When it was over, Sandra looked at him, a soft smile on her lips. "You know, after all this, the secret we were so afraid of isn't the thing I'll remember. It's that we faced it together." Keanu smiled faintly. "Some bonds aren't made on screen. They're made when no one's watching." The flames died down, leaving only the smell of smoke and the sound of the night. Somewhere in the darkness, the last shadows of the past faded away, and what remained was something stronger than fear, trust.